In this video, I'm going to revisit some really great questions and comments that viewers had about my sedums video that I did last summer. This video was about some challenges and some learning experiences I had from growing the sedums in my own garden. And it's also a great opportunity to come inside and think about what we're going to do for next year for our garden in 2026. And so this is always my creative time to think about planning and what I want to do for next year. Also stick around because I am going to share with you my sedums wish list for 2026. Hi, I'm Anne. For many years as an artist, an educator, and a gardener, I've had to find ways to be creative on a budget. And on this channel, I help home gardeners like you find ways to be resourceful and creative by building on what you already have. First off, I'd like to quote the late, great, famous gardener Beth Chatto. She was an English gardener and designer, and she's been known for her statement, right plant, right place. We want to try to find the environment that the plant naturally, biologically needs to not only grow, but to thrive. So sedums have some minimum requirements. They are very adaptable plants just by the fact that I can grow them, and I'm probably a little bit removed from the sort of original habitat that these kind of plants would normally take. So one of the first and most important things that sedums need to really thrive in your garden is full sun. They really don't like shade. They can tolerate a little bit of part sun conditions, maybe light or bright shade. But if you really want them to survive and thrive, they really need to be baking in full sun for most of the day. So one of the next really important components for growing sedums well is having well-drained soil. So this is where Beth Chatto's motto, right plant, right place, really comes into play. Sedums naturally do not like water sitting around their roots. They are part of the succulent family, meaning that they can hold water in their leaves and stems, which provides them that moisture throughout the growing season. If you've ever noticed that sedums are often given the common name stone crop, that kind of tells you a lot about the kind of soil conditions that they prefer. So they don't need a lot of extra water to grow throughout the season. In fact, you may be killing them with kindness if you're overwatering them, or if they're sited in a place where they're just sitting in wet soil for too long. Now, if your soil is kind of like mine, and it is rather heavy, has a lot of clay, you could add something at the bottom of the planting hole if you have really heavy soil. So you could add gravel, grit, you could add maybe perlite, some really coarse bark. I also have compost that I add, and it's pretty kind of chunky compost that allows some of that moisture to drain away from the roots directly. So once you've got the siting and the soil figured out for sedums, it's pretty easy after that. They don't really need a lot of pruning unless you want to trim off the flowers or in some ways shape the plant differently, but sedums generally don't need that. You just have to kind of select the habit of plant that you want in the first place and you're good to go. Also, sedums don't really need to be fertilized at all. Just like with the soil, they like fairly well draining, nutrient poor soil. So adding fertilizers really is not necessary. It's not going to really help them grow better. In fact, it might even invite certain diseases and pests. So I would just skip that altogether and just make sure that you're siting the plant in the place that it likes in the first place. I'm going to share with you my 2026 sedums wish list. I probably can't get all of these plants, but I'm hoping I can at least get a few of them next year. So I created a whole PDF, and if you want to have a copy of this for free, all you have to do is comment sedum below, and I'll send you the link for that PDF. So I'm going to start with a few that have darker leaves. If you may remember in my video, I focused on one called Night Embers, which is a fabulous one that I think if you haven't gotten that, you should give that a try. But there are also some other varieties that are worth checking out. So the first one I'm going to talk about is called Dark Magic. So obviously the name's really cool, so who doesn't want to try that? And it has those glossy, purpley, almost black leaves. So that's very intriguing to begin with. And then later in the season, it gets those dark pink flowers. The next one on my list is called Touchdown Teak. The photos always look different to me on the internet, so I'm not quite sure exactly what it's going to look like. But I think the fact that it's got teak in the name makes me think that perhaps it has a bluish cast to the foliage. Then that sounds really interesting to me. I think the flowers tend to be kind of more of a rosy red color, but that seems like a nice complement to the leaf color with that kind of bluish cast to it. Another one that has dark foliage that I think could be a real contender is called Mojave Jewels. It has that plummy kind of bluish foliage that almost looks like it has a dusting or a waxy kind of surface on it. And the flowers again are kind of a rosy pink. Another one that's on my list that I haven't tried yet is called Thunderhead. This one has more of a gray greenish foliage. The flowers are really full on it, which makes it a really dramatic plant in your garden. When the plant starts to age throughout the season, oftentimes the colors will change as well. So that's something to think about when you're looking at your sedums, not just the early spring or summer color, but think about how is that color going to change over time. And sometimes I think sedums get even more beautiful as they progress into the fall season. Now the next set of sedums are more in the yellow and green range. So as a nice contrast to the ones with the darker leaves, there are several of those that I think either in the foliage or the flowers have a lot of potential to provide some color contrast. So one of the first ones up that I think looks really cool online is called Banana Split. This one is an upright sedum, and it has that dark kind of burgundy, chocolatey brown foliage, but the flowers are really a nice contrast. I did talk in my other video about peach pearls, which has those kind of warm apricot-y yellow tones in the flowers as well. But this one's a little bit different. It looks like maybe the yellow coloring is a little softer and more subtle. So another sedum that I think would be a great addition if you're looking for something in that greenish to yellowish color range is one called Lemon Jade. The foliage is a bright kind of green color, very fresh looking, and the flowers tend to be a nice kind of citron greenish yellow color. So it's not harsh like a neon, really intense kind of color, but it does add that other end of the color spectrum, especially if you want to contrast it with darker leaf plants with purpley or bluish tones, or even more reddish tone plants. I think it would look really great. So another one that's kind of similar, but a little different, is called Desert Blonde. This one I think seems really interesting. It has, in contrast to Lemon Jade, I think the foliage has a little bit more of a bluish cast. It's not quite as bright green. And then the flowers, again, are that kind of that creamy yellow color. So I think that contrast between the foliage being a little bit more bluish in tone with the creamy yellow flowers could be a really nice color combination, and an interesting plant to place against other plants and see how that color interacts around your garden. So the last two sedums I'm going to talk about in this video are both ground cover sedums. The first one that I really like that I'm hoping to get is called Lime Twister. It has like a lime green center with a little bit of yellow edging on it. And then in contrast, it has rose pink flowers. So that color combination I think would be really nice and make a nice edging plant. The last one that I think would be really dramatic and wonderful in anyone's garden is called Full to Glow. That starts out with kind of bronzy red foliage, and then as the season progresses and the temperatures cool a bit, it really gets nice vibrant red tones in that foliage. It also has the rosy red pink flowers too in the fall, so that's also something to look forward to. But I think you can be assured that even when it's not in flowering, the foliage alone would be a great asset to your planting scheme.